So, good evening, everyone. It is, I always have to look at my phone. See, it's the 25th of May already. And I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation because I've got my normal, lovely bestie, Rachel here, Rachel Russell, but one of our new friends, Annessa Reader. And Annessa, we've connected with recently because she does this amazing thing called Decode Your Design, which we're going to talk about today because both Rachel and I have had a reading and it was just fantastic, Annessa. So just to start off for our listeners, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into this?
Sure. I, again, kind of found myself at a place about 9, 10 years ago where everything on the external looked bright and shiny. And, I kind of had the job, had the apartment, had the cool life in San Francisco. But this little voice inside me was like, quit your job, quit your job. And I really didn't want to listen to it. But it just got louder and louder, and my life got more difficult and more difficult. And so I finally surrendered at some point. And again, it's that thing. It's like I'd made the leap and the net appeared. And so that took me, I just started listening to that little voice more and more and more. And it just kept bringing me new and interesting things, as well as challenges and growth and learning. And so after about 4 years of just really tuning into my intuition and kind of letting it be my inner authority, human design came across my path, and it affirmed a lot of the things I was feeling and learning about myself intuitively. And a lot of it is that I'm not designed to do things like the majority of people in the population, which was just so comforting and healing for me at the time, because I just felt like a fish out of water when I looked around. And even like other spiritual teachings, I was like, why doesn't this resonate with me? Like, why isn't this working for me? And so it was a solo journey, and I found human design just like super supportive. And so I've been studying it now for about 5 years and working with it, thinking it was mostly for my own internal growth and my own internal journey. But again, the little knock at the door, the little voice has been like, okay, it's time for you to kind of get this out into the world and share. And I really think of it as a language. It's a kind of to talk about this thing that we can't really put our finger on, and so I like it as a tool to have these conversations about energy and gifts and our inner knowings that isn't really based in a belief system. It doesn't really matter if you have kind of Christian beliefs or more spiritual beliefs. Like I just find this a really useful tool and a useful language to kind of have these conversations and try and reintroduce this like inner knowing that we all have. And that why I was so drawn to Catherine is like, you've been doing this with the animal community as well as the human community. And I just found this like synergy in the work you're doing, and the way you view things and the way you talk about things was really, I was really gravitating towards it, because we actually have a similar life path in that way. In our charts, we both kind of have similar gifts that we're here to share. And for you, it's this kind of broader audience, and for me it's going one-on-one and kind of helping support people in a really more intimate way in their journey.
Oh, that's just wonderful. And what I loved about it is I've got a few questions about how it works before we launch into sort of what Rachel and I have done. But Rachel, you and I were saying, weren't we, when we had the readings, both of us, we found it, one, incredibly accurate, didn't we?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
two, so helpful. We'll come on to some specifics in a minute, because it gives you things that but in such a clear way. And it's just so nice to have that affirmation. When I shared it with my husband this weekend, and I was really laughing because he was like, oh my God, that's so accurate. It's absolutely brilliant. But can you explain, so it's based on people's birth charts, is that right?
Correct. And again, part of me accepts that there is a little bit of magic and mystery in this system. And so I'm not one to overly explain kind of how and why. I just know it works and it is accurate. But yeah, it absolutely is based on kind of the astrology of your system, but takes in other ancient wisdoms and kind of knowings and repackages it in a way. I do think it is just a translation of your astrology chart. Instead of kind of talking about like Taurus in your moon, it's kind of it's a language that is more grounded and more contemporary and kind of easier, I believe, to interact with than kind of these astrological concepts that I find hard to kind of grab onto. So I'm a really grounded kind of logical person. That's in my nature. And so that's why I'm drawn to the system. I think there's truth in astrology, but I just don't, it's not the language I like to work with.
Yeah, but the chart looks so jolly confusing because there's numbers here, there and everywhere and how they join and what's your, to me, it looked completely confusing. So to have someone to kind of, understand it and translate what does this mean and how does it affect us and what is, I think, more than anything, and Catherine and I were talking beforehand, what is positive about who we are and how can we, how can that help us? But then what do we need to watch out for? And, all those elements that, so me personally, I hate the detail and planning and specifics, and it just bores the heck out of me, but I love organizing things, and I love the now, and I love, kind of working towards this future and kind of gathering the resources. And I think Catherine and I are similar in that sense, but it is quite magical knowing and relieving that, you're not everything. Nobody is, are we? Really? We're very good at specific things. So if you have your own business, for example, you've got to be multifaceted and you've got to, do everything, and not everybody loves everything. And it's great, that we're all so completely different, but yet we do fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, really. It is that magic, isn't it? And it's understanding that magic that, if you can just grow and embellish all those things that we're amazing at already, it makes such a difference to the world. And, and then you walk down the street smiling at people, without a nappy on the face, obviously, at the moment.
No, I listened to your recent interview with Charlie and Jonathan, and it, to me, dovetailed so perfectly with this conversation. And that's what you're describing to me, is this awareness that we do have these different perspectives and we see the world differently. And how do we make space for that again? And that's the other reason I gravitate towards this language, is it just, when I saw it and understood all the different types of people, but I was like, oh, but we're all, pieces of it. We all need to work together to make it work. And having a way to understand, like, you're not going to be great if you keep trying to do this thing that you're not designed to do. You're just not going to have success. So instead of kind of charging like a bull at something, it's like, let's let it go. And how do we reframe and look at, like, where are your strengths and focus on those? And again, that's part of this, such a big part of my journey, is trusting that, like, if I do that, that'll actually be successful and it'll actually work. And so that's what I feel I also bring to the table. Is like, I am somebody who learns from life. Like, I have to go through it. I can't be told. And so I've been there, done that kind of. And so that's what I want to share and teach from a place. It's from a place of experience, not from a place of kind of knowing the right words or the right lessons. It's like, no, I did that. And this is the result I had, and hopefully share with other people that don't have that in their chart, that they are able to be the type of person who's like, no, the stove's hot, don't touch it, and they won't. But I'm the type of person who's like, no, I have to touch it. I have to learn for myself. But I'm hoping other people can benefit and learn more quickly.
I found it so useful, and I can't wait to share some of the stuff with Rachel, because we haven't sort of really shared each other's some of the key things from our charts yet. But Rachel's one of my best friends, and I love the fact the way we complement each other. And I think it's really fascinating, because when I look through my chart, even though by my age I should know it, And I do know some of it intrinsically, but sometimes when you're busy, and that's me all over, I'm so passionate about everything. And a couple of things you said about me, that, you know, my emotions are on a wave, which is so true. I mean, my husband laughed at that so much because it really is. And that, you know, what to avoid making decisions when you're in a high or low emotional state. So that was really useful for me, Annessa, because I know I've learned the hard way not to make decisions when I'm in a low emotional state, because I am on a real emotional wave, as anyone who knows me are. But I hadn't really grasped that I shouldn't be making the decisions when I'm on the high of the wave either. So that was really, really useful for me. And the other thing, one of the other things just that I'll share, because it really fits in with what you were just saying, and my chat with Charlie and Jonathan. Rachel and I have got a friend that we've known for years called Troy Casey, and the certified health nut. And we got involved with him when we were really on our health journey, which we're both really passionate about health and wellness. And one of the things that was so funny is I'm come very much from a scientific background. And so you're used to being surrounded by peers in the business sense, in my business background and my scientific background, where you have no credibility unless you can explain everything and reference everything. And one of the things that I admired the most about Troy when I met him is his ability to say, to stand up and say to people, you know, I just know it. I don't have to explain it. And I kept saying to Rachel and my husband and myself, do you know, I so want to be like that, because it doesn't fit comfortably. There's certain things I just know, but I can't necessarily quote you a scientific reference for it. And then up comes on my chart, you know, that's exactly one of the things that I do. I you know, that I know shit does make sense to me, and that I know it, my inner knowing, even if I can't explain it to me. So there's so many useful things I've got out of it that it makes me realize why I've been in this sort of mental struggle with myself for so long, and actually just to let go of that. And that's fine. That's my personality. I might have come from that scientific background, but that's why it hasn't, certain parts of it hasn't sit comfortably with me, because I've also got the spiritual side of me where I just know things, and I can't necessarily explain it to others. So that really made me giggle when you came out with that. I was like, spot on. What about you, Rachel? What are some of the real standout ones from yours?
Well, the detail thing, I suppose, and it is something that I have to do, you know, in my role and my work, etc. But I've been called Mary Poppins, where I go in and kind of shake everything up, bring everything together, and then I leave. And that's kind of, it's been me for the last decade, kind of just going in, sorting out a load of things, you know, bringing the right teams together. Because, yeah, I think if anything, really, it's understanding that the big key thing was, because I'm a manifester, I do live on the moment, and, you know, and then I look to the future. But it was and on a personal note, you know, it's probably the thing that broke my marriage, because my partner was very, you know, detailed, and, you know, we always love the opposite, don't we? It's kind of quite grounding for me more than anything. But he was very detailed, and he didn't understand why I just didn't, you know, talk about the past and learn from the past and all the rest of it. I mean, I know it, I intrinsically know it, and then you just move forward with it. But there was this kind of, you just live in the now, and it frustrated the heck out of him in the end. And, you know, the marriage broke down and I got divorced, and, you know, I was happy. So, but, you know, things come generally from vulnerability, don't they? The best things, you know, you get stuck in a corner, you know, pushed against the wall, and you find a way to sort things out. And I think this is, you know, quite interesting, because it does point out our vulnerabilities, and actually our vulnerabilities are our strengths, because that's how we help each other, and that's where we intrinsically understand. And it's the emotional side of helping each other as well, because there is so much mental health, you know, issues in the world at the moment as we know it, because the whole world is turned upside down for some reason. But, you know, it's that coming together, and the physicality of coming together as well, and helping each other, that there is such a difference, you know. And it's so lovely to see people, you know, and to meet guys on here, but the physical hugging, you know, of someone is quite different, isn't it? And I know I'm moving away from the specifics, but you know, the vulnerability for me is knowing that someone has my back on the detailed side of things, so that I can rely on them, and then I can just, you know, come up with these amazing ideas. And I am somehow, and we all are, connected in different ways. So it's yeah, I think that was really lovely. And I think Annessa, you said that when you found out, you know, your the way in which, you know, I suppose it's read out for you, you got quite emotional, because it is a release, you know. It's like, thank God, you know, at least there is something out there that explains who the heck I am. It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a total release. I was like, I'm not crazy, I'm not insane, like I can be this authentic version of myself that doesn't fit the mold, doesn't kind of fit the standard narrative, and it's okay. And I was already had some momentum, was already building some success and kind of having some wins, to trust it myself. But again, to kind of have it mirrored back to me was just so affirming. And I think, you know, it is helpful. You know, I don't think we're not meant to be on this journey. It's not a solo, it's an inward journey, but I don't think it's a solo journey. I think we need those little reflector moments and build up moments and support. So
yeah.
And to what you were describing, Rachel, it's like you reading your chart was super interesting, because we're almost polar opposites in ours. And so, and I just say this too, because what I find is a gift is that in realizing, like, you're not the detailed person, but I am 100% the detailed person. And so it's this awareness of, by you letting go of that you're not good at, it actually creates an opportunity for somebody that is good at those things and loves those things to do. And so when we're kind of in this somewhat like energetic hoarding, like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it, we kind of steal opportunities potentially from people that are really actually good at doing that, by trying to do it all ourselves.
Absolutely. Do you know, I've always wanted to drive a bus, and I don't know where that came from, but I've always wanted to drive a really big vehicle just to take people on the most amazing journey just for one day. You know, and it's little things like that, and it is the small details in certain aspects on the creative side that really excite me. You know, and I suppose, you know, that there are people who would love to be, you know, picking up everybody's rubbish, and how on earth somebody would love to do that, I have no idea. But, you know, there are people out there who want to do all sorts of different things. And that is the intrinsic amazing thing, you know. And Catherine loves to communicate with animals and help their owners. Unfortunately, it's generally the owners sometimes that create the issues, because I remember working with Catherine years ago, and, you know, we were talking about a limp from the person. You know, you could see the person walking and you could see the horse limping with the person, you know. So everything's a mirror in some way, shape or form, isn't it? And
yeah, it is. And I think, you know, one of the things I think why I get on so well with you, Rachel, is I think we understand and appreciate each other's differences. So one of the other things that came out for mine, which was hysterical, was the provoking with consciousness, and saying the thing that no one else wants to say for the greater good. And I can't tell you how much this has got me in trouble over my life, because it's not very British. We don't do things like that, Brits. You know, we really don't. We're polite and we hold our tongue and things like this. And it's got me into so much trouble. But I don't mean it with any malice at all. I mean it from the greater good. And then you've got people like Rachel who will put up with that trait in me because she understands it's not personal, and then other people will obviously take real offense. But that was another one that caused a lot of giggling in my household, because everyone's always said to me over the years, why do you always just have to say it, Catherine? Why can't you just be quiet like the rest of us? But you know, when you're saying these things and having these discussions, it's funny because everyone's got a different, we are all so different, and we do see the world so differently, and there's no sort of right or wrong. And sometimes, you know, it's a bit like tough love. You know, as a mother, I can't always, as a mother to 2- and 4-legged little creatures, you know, sometimes you might have to make hard decisions for the greater good. You know, if my dog's about to run across the road, I might have to shout at it to save its life. You know, like you were saying, Annessa, if you're about to put your hand on a stove, you normally grab your toddler away from it. But yeah, it's so fascinating to see how these things play out. But it also, the reading you did with me gave me quite a different realization, because I'm a type of person that I hate labels. Probably because I can change my emotional state 100 times in one day. So for me, Rachel and I used to do a lot of natural horsemanship, and you know, people label their horse as this personality or that personality, but of course how you behave when you're stressed and how you behave when you're relaxed can be two very different personalities. But this I found was great because it's not a labeling, because it gives you both sides of the coins, the good and the bad. So I didn't object to any of this. It didn't sort of raise my hackles at all, because it was so constructive, the report.
Yeah, my upbringing, because I was quite a rebel, I think, growing up, and my parents
Never think it now, Rachel. You look like butter wouldn't melt in your mouth.
Well, I left home quite early, but yeah, my parents did struggle to try and bring me up, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And that was something that came out in the reading, is that children manifestors, you know, should really just be left alone, pretty much, and just left to grow up on your own. But yeah, I did struggle with rules and regulations, and yeah, I knew my own path, I think, from a very early age. But yeah, and I suppose, yeah, when you can trust yourself, I think that is the magic, isn't it? But knowing this, you know, it's not small detail, it's massive. You know, just these kind of little pointers, you know, go along this way because that's what you love. We intrinsically know what we love, but then, you know, we try and do so much and we get caught up in so much. And this world, as it flipping is at the moment, you know, it's not the best environment for everything, because everything is generated through money and everyone has to work, and, you know, you have to, there's X, Y, Z, and then there's, you know, we were born to shop. So then people get credit cards, and, you know, so it goes on and on and on, and then you have to have a job, and then you have to have an income, you know, and this is kind of environment where you then actually get labeled in that sense, don't you, Catherine? And there's that, yeah, you're then having to wear many hats potentially.
Yeah, and quite often the labels are wrong, because you've society-wise, just like a bit like you started off with, Annessa, you fitted in to what you think you should do, but it's not. You know you're a round peg in a square hole. I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you, Annessa, as a mum, I think this is absolutely brilliant. I wish I'd known about this when my children were younger. Of course, it's never too late, because just like you were saying, Rachel, imagine how helpful that would have been to your parents if they'd have had that reading for you, because as a parent, you're so desperate to protect your child. Most parents are. I know I'm generalizing a bit there, but you know, when you then understand that sometimes it's in the child's best interest to let go of some of that control and let them, there's so many tools that I can see for the business world, the parents, everything. Annessa, I mean, how does that work with your clients? Are you getting people from all areas?
Yes. So just to address the parenting part of it, is the kind of hope of human design, the aspiration of it is this idea that you knew this the day you were born. Like, this is who, like, you were designed to be this person. And this isn't a finger wagging moment, but it is parents and society that then condition us, as kind of the language that human design uses, is to be something that we are not. And so really human design is less about learning It's more about unlearning and remembering and kind of getting back to that authentic place. And yeah, the more people can become aware of this, and we can kind of infuse this, become more comfortable with this language, especially with parents and in business, are definitely the two areas that I think this is super valuable. But to give parents the confidence that it's like, oh, okay, like I can be a little like, it's safe to be a little bit more hands off potentially with a manifestor child, like that, and to trust that it's like, okay, like and again, until you've worked with your own internal guidance and actually can trust this energy, this life force, this whatever you want to call it, that like there is wisdom in it and that it is safe to follow. But to me, this isn't something you can just like take my word at. It's an experiment. It's something you have to play with yourself. And the more you flex, it's, you know, it's like weight training. You just kind of like baby step into it. And at some point, you know, I'm at a point now where I don't do anything that's not kind of, I feel guided to. Even, you know, this conversation here, like this was a series of weird serendipities that made this happen. This was not my ego constructing this at all. I did not have any strategic planning to make this moment happen. And so that's the juiciness, that's the flow, that's the life. And I want more people to be able to like experience that. But again, we have a lot of programming, we have a lot of conditioning as a whole to unlearn. And this is my little piece of the pie in trying to support that happening.
I love that, because it was me that sort of was saying, come on, Annessa, I really want to share this because it's so useful. Because I mean, I am a networker, but also I just love sharing people's gifts, you know, because we've all got such unique talents, and it's so important that people find out about these things. I mean, I wouldn't even have known this hadn't this existed. I'd never heard of it. And then when you see how clear it is, because in all my corporate career, I've had so many personality profiling things done. It's beyond, you know, honestly, I've been there, done them, got the t-shirt sort of thing, mainly because your employers want them, not necessarily because you want them. But this is very, very different. It's a very, very different science. Certainly for me, the language really resonates with me. It's really clear and it's really constructive, which is what I really loved. But yeah, I agree. It is this sort of coming together and sort of sharing the information, because I think a lot of people at the moment, with what's happened over the last year, are really questioning, okay, what next? What do I really want to do with my life? Even those, I mean, my husband and I, we've been working the whole way through, so we haven't had time off and things, but it's been a different work because we've been at home base. We haven't been flying off all of the world and everything. And so most people have had some sort of reset forced on them over the last year. And I think then the more we understand ourselves and where our true passions lie, the better. I've always joked for years and years to my friends that I'd love to live in a commune, because just take my two sisters, you know, I've got a twin sister who's completely different to me and an elder sister. Now, my elder sister is the most brilliant organizer you could ever meet. She is your dream administrator, which I hate. I was speaking to Rachel. I want it done properly, but I don't want to do it myself. And then my twin sister is absolutely brilliant at homemaking. Her house is immaculate. She decorates, you know, she's sort of a real homemaker. And I'm not that either, but I want it done nicely, but I want someone else to do it for me. And I'm happy as Larry when I'm outside, when I'll look after the farm for everyone. I'll grow the vegetables. I'll look after the animals. I'll go and gather the wood, sort of thing. But I want to be outside. So we've all got our different places, and you need all of those skills to make a community work. And I think that's what I love. Is it really, if people are looking there and thinking, I'm not sure, I don't feel right about what I'm doing, where do I want to go? I think this is a really good tool for them to say, yeah, this is what you're going to be really comfortable following your passions, following your design for.
It's so simple as well, isn't it? I mean, you take, for example, I was watching something recently, and I think this is where I've been going wrong with my little seeds, is that you should always water seeds in the morning, because if you water them in the afternoon or when you come home from work, you water them with cold water,
Mm.
And then you have them on a windowsill, and these little seeds, you know, they need a little bit of warmth, and they're just like, this is freezing, I don't want to live in here. And you should never have them on a south facing window, apparently. And I would say the opposite to that, because I thought south facing would create the heat and all the rest of it. Anyway, but it is those little simple things that we don't know those details. And when we don't know those details, we don't get the propagation. So we don't, you know, properly essentially live out our lives in that way. And it's, you know, how do we make the best of the time that we have here, you know? Now, whether the med beds come and we can be like 30 years younger for a while, you know, and then become 300 years old, 500 years old. I mean, I am looking forward to that, definitely. But also in the same way, you know, it's like when you're kind of at school and people say, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, it's the worst question in the world, because it's like there's 7,000 things that I want to do, you know, and I'm going to maybe do one for 1 year and do another one for 2 months, and then another one for like 3 years, and then another one, and then that, and then that, because it's life is a bit like a tree, isn't it? You go up your tree trunk and then you branch off because that's really interesting, and then, oh, that's quite interesting. And but that's me personally. Some people are way more stable. But you know, it's that intrinsic knowing who we are. What's that mirror? What does it really say in this human design? And how can we make the best use of our time in order to kind of share the right things with people? And you know, the administration. So Catherine's just set up a whole new website.
I know, congratulations.
But I need a good administrator.
Yeah. But you see, then it's the detailed things, and the, you know, the typing out and the uploading of videos, and you know, those manual kind of little things that Catherine hates, but some people absolutely love them, you know. And how magical is that? And how can we all help each other? And I think that is unique. It really is. It changes everything. It really does.
Your story reminded me, when I was younger, especially, but on job interviews, that favorite question is like, what's your 5-year plan? And I just remember that would just stir up such anger in me when I was younger. And to me, it's like, I think that is just completely false thinking. I don't think any of us are actually designed to have a 5-year plan. It is this much more intuitive, in the moment, going with the flow, and like opportunities for growth. And so I don't know I have no idea where I'll be in 5 years, and understanding that is a place of great discomfort, I think, for a lot of people, because we've constructed this normality around that's a good thing, and that's a secure thing, that there's safety in that. And so again, I look at this work as ways to kind of help people break out of that, but in very tangible baby step kind of ways, because you can't shift this on a dime. Like, this isn't something you kind of get a reading and, oh, now I know, and everything's going to change tomorrow. It is a gradual transition, kind of integrating this information.
But you know which voice, I suppose, to a certain extent, to listen to more.
It's a little, the way I describe it is like, first listening, like being aware that it's even there. Like, some people like have shut it down completely, potentially. And so one, acknowledging that it's there, and then maybe being like, okay, I hear it, or I feel it, or whatever, but I'm still comfortable doing it my old way. But at least now I'm aware, and I can see, oh, what happens? Oh, well, that didn't really go that well. There was a roadblock, or, you know, oh, and so it's starting off, it's just kind of an awareness of like, okay, I'm getting this information. I might not be ready to listen to it, but I can at least start to see, when I don't listen to it, what happens. Like, do I get the results I want?
And you, Annessa, you work with people sort of that want to, on a longer term sort of coaching basis as well, don't you? And this information must be so amazing for you to help in that role as well.
Yeah, so I've kind of set up like 3 levels of service. I kind of looked at my own journey, and as a template of being like, what what would have supported me in this? What did I wish I had? And so I've created a class for people who are kind of like early on their journey and just like intuition, and so it goes through kind of the 7 different types of intuition, where it can show up as emotions, as desires, as instincts, as knowings, kind of, and where in your chart you can kind of see what's highlighted. And it's just a talk through kind of what those are and how to start to reconnect with them. Because I think, honestly, if people just do that, you can figure it out on your own if you really can trust in that. And so like I said, so for me, I had that trust for about 4 or 5 years, and then human design came into my life and I had a reading. And so then I do the readings. But at that point, I learned a few things for sure, but it was, again, much more of an affirmation. It much more gave me confidence that, okay, this is like, I'm doing the right thing. Like, and so it gave me confidence to keep pushing forward and make bigger leaps of faith and kind of, and so, yeah. And so then I have like coaching where, they do like a 30-minute session. If there's something that's coming up, you're like, you were talking about tough love. And I think that's a lot of what the coaching is like, we have kind of created these paradigms where it's like, well, if XYZ happens, then you should do ABC. If my partner cheats on me, I should break up with him. And actually, in tuning in with love and kind of like, what's the actual loving decision? I don't think it's so black and white. And I think the most loving thing you can do could be walking away from the relationship, or the most loving thing you could do would be to like work through it. And it's being able to go inward to find those answers. And so that's the coaching part of it, because I have, one of my gifts is that I can feel the resistance. And so it's like, when I'm doing readings with somebody and I may be mentioning a gift, I can feel where they've like where there's some blockage there, where there's some fear, where there's something kind of, it shows up also as like, I can tell when somebody's lying to me. And so sometimes people are lying to themselves in a way. And it's like, I can pick up, like they, sincerely want to be doing something because they think they should, and it feels comfortable, but I'm like, like I can feel there's a resistance there. And so how do we start to tune into that and like look at it from different perspectives? And then, so I've been doing graphic design and business strategy for 15 years. And what's so funny is like a lot of the things that frustrated me in that life was that so many of my clients weren't comfortable trusting their intuition. They wanted to know, well, what did the scientists say? Or what's they wanted everything to kind of be backed by logic and reason. And I was very challenged by that. I was like, no, what's your gut say? What does your intuition say? And so I'm excited to, when I get the opportunity to work with people that have kind of gone a little bit further down their journey, they've recognized their gifts, because there's this magic moment in that where all of a sudden the world kind of opens up, and it's the opposite of what I find with my clients that aren't tuning in, where they kind of have this very narrow view of what they want their business to be, where people who have kind of opened up to their gifts, all of a sudden they're like, well, I could do this and I could do that. And the world becomes this amazing playground. And the opposite problem is now it's like, now my vision's too broad. And what I like to come in and do is like, okay, let's focus. Like, how do we really like turn up the volume on your gifts and kind of scrape away some of the noise and busy work? Because that to me is where the real magic is at.
That would be a really good idea for me. Because
I was just thinking that, because I think both Rachel and I, we have this in common, don't we? Because people laugh at me because I say everything's exciting and everything's brilliant, and they like, but I do, but then I struggle to focus because I've got so many interests. I've got at the moment, I mean, I've just got, I love this book. My friend Carol gave me this book, Forbidden Health. It's just amazing, Andrew. And I'm passionate about this, and then I'm passionate about that, and in the end I'm trying to do so many different things. So Rachel and I both need that. We'll be booking in with you. It would really help. Oh my god, can you imagine, Rachel, how helpful that would be?
Well, and I suppose Annessa, in terms of that, I guess if you are the opposite to me, you're very good at that kind of okay, well, let's structure this. Let's let's narrow this down. How do we, that's great, but that's maybe for a couple months time, or what we really need to focus on, need to embellish X, Y, Z. But yeah, I'm exactly the same as Catherine. I have literally so many interests, and I did many years ago, thank goodness, decide to stop watching TV, because I thought, what's the point in watching everyone else's dreams, when I can create my own? And now I say there's no point watching everyone else's nightmares. I want to live my own dreams, because they are nightmares these days on these boxes, and I want nothing to do with it. And I do every so often go next door to my parents, and these little snippets, and you think, oh, is this exactly what they're telling them? That there's this vapor coming out of their mouth, and it's orange, and everything's kind of black and white, but there's this orange vapor, and this is whatever it is. But in terms of kind of understanding how we can actually focus our passions in that sense would be quite magical, actually. It really would.
Both of you have much more creator energy, like you're here to create. And so actually my first career, I thought I wanted to be a museum curator.
Wow.
And so I pursued that for a few years, but then I was like, no, this isn't it. But that idea of the curator is, from my human design chart, is totally in alignment with my energy. It's like, I love being, so I'm not inherently a creative person, but I love being around creativity, and I can kind of see where the magic is, what's good. And so it's like, I want to kind of be the one to showcase, like, no, look over here, this is amazing. And feel into, when I have conversations with people, it's like, I can feel into, it's like where the highest level of joy is. And so it's like, okay, let's start there and like build around that, because there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of creation happening there. And so it's, how do we then take that spark and build a structure around that? And then maybe in a year or two, again, it shifts. That's the other thing. This isn't something you kind of set and forget, or you get it and you're done. Like, this is your life journey. This is your life map. And I'm even starting to question whether this is even how solid it is. I think this is kind of a blueprint for your energetic body that you kind of start with, but I'm noticing more that I tune into I can play with it a little bit more. It's not as stagnant. And so it's like, it's kind of like getting a model off the lot, like a car, and then being able to customize it after and so, but I think you kind of got to get the basics down, kind of learn how to work with the energy blueprint you were received at birth. And again, this is more of a something I'm experimenting with right now, but I'm like, I think after you get comfortable with it or in the flow, you can actually play with it a little bit more.
And consciously create, pick on the things and think, right, I'm really drawn to that. Let's try and consciously create down that thing. That's really exciting. Yeah.
Catherine and I have a few conversations all about manifesting. Actually, it's something that we're quite into anyway, full stop, because you do create your own world in which you live in. And so yeah, it makes complete and utter sense in order to kind of home in on those aspects. And I suppose we are a bit like Play-Doh in a sense, aren't we? And we can mold our lives and our mirrors in a certain way. Now, I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around it as well at the same time. I don't actually understand fully what you mean. And in terms of how, could you give an example of because you're saying you're kind of, you're thinking, okay, so this is your blueprint, this is your foundation, and why would you want to mold it and change it? Or I'm just trying to understand it.
So like, for example, like there's one of the intuitive ways of talking is about like a sounding board, where it's like you're somebody who finds clarity through taking your thoughts and actually just translate them, thoughts are kind of here, and as soon as you speak them, now you've kind of created a linear structure to them, and it's a way of helping to organize. And so that's not something that is actually in my chart, but it's a tool that I'm aware of and I've been playing with more, and I've been finding a lot more clarity in it. So it's this idea that it's not so black and white. It's not so stagnant in that, like, well, this is what you should be doing and this is what you shouldn't be doing. It's kind of like, start here. But after you kind of build some confidence and get your groove and kind of, you can play, there's some play in there. And so even with my design too, it's like, I'm supposed to be somebody who waits for invitations, that kind of isn't here to kind of make things happen. And in that same way, but I find myself wanting to play with it. Like, can I, and what happens when I do try and make something happen? And so it's more of an awareness that energy is, it's like the ocean. It's this constantly moving thing. And so even by giving it a structure and a language, I'm just highly aware that it's not something I'm actually trying to ever say is stagnant. It's this constantly moving thing. And so any notions of like, well, this is who I am and this is how I have to do anything, I just want to be leery of putting forth any sort of intentions that it's that stagnant. It's kind of like, no, here's a start, but play with it. Don't be too rigid with it.
I guess, and I suppose there are elements of you and Catherine which are very similar. And Catherine was the one in which you resonated with. I think Catherine said something that you totally resonated with. And that was your, okay, I hear something, universe, and this is for something for me to act upon. So that in a sense was your invitation. So unless you're open to hearing, we can't listen.
Right. So yeah, with that, I was watching a video, I think it was one of your videos with Janine, the three of you, and Catherine was talking about wanting to get an astrology reading. And this little voice was just like, offer her a human design reading. And I was like, okay, but and again, without expectations, it wasn't coming from a place of, and then I'm going to get to be on her YouTube channel. Like it even though I think there was a little hint of like something wanting to come through, but it wasn't my intention in offering it. My intention was, I have found so much peace in what you're sharing and kind of being like, oh my gosh, like there's other like-minded people out there. And so it was more of like a gift of like, I wanted to return the favor. And so, yeah.
It's so lovely, because I think that's a really, really, really important point you've raised, because I've got the type of personality where I can't bear taking something for nothing. I really believe in an exchange of energy. So I find it quite difficult if someone offers me a gift. And it's something I've had to really learn to accept. And then the more I've learned to accept it, the more I've realized that it is always a two-way exchange of energy. It's just I didn't see it at the start, so it's really fascinating when you say that. It's like sometimes it's having the confidence, isn't it, to act on that inspired action. And if someone had said to me a year ago that I'd have a YouTube channel, I would have laughed, because it was most of the stuff I've done in my career has never been planned. It's just been, sort of intrinsically. But I think what you do is quite like the iridology. I look into animals' eyes. You can do it with humans as well. And they say the eyes are the window to the soul. And it's a starting point. And there's so many different layers you can go to. So you start at the first layer. And then once you've cleared up, sort of dealt with what that's showing, you go to the next layer. And it's always this continual journey of learning. And so, whether it's the iridology, the human design, whether anything else, we never get there. It's never the destination, is it? It's always the journey, and there's always more we can learn.
Yeah, reflexology is another example.
Yeah,
isn't it? And that's the here and now. The mapping of your whole body is on your hands, your ears, your teeth, your tongue, your eyeball, iridology, and that, it's incredible. It really is. And there are so many different ways and different facets to kind of understanding who we are. I was giggling when you said, Catherine, that you were you were learning to appreciate comments, I suppose. When I remember when Catherine and I popped to America, I mean, Catherine has the most amazing like body figure ever, but she wouldn't accept it. And so it was really interesting, you know, and I think you have got a lot better, Catherine. Sorry, maybe that's a bit personal, but you know, at the same time, you know, it's learning to just, you know, thank you. I really appreciate that, because, you know, Catherine does have like a body to die for. It's incredible. Sorry. But but you are really picky with you know, how you feel, and we all are in a different way. And I think, you know, we create a resilience and this molding to this world in which we live in. And, you know, you have to be X, you have to be X, and you have to be X, you know, and it's this kind of, yeah, I think things like this really do help people on the emotional level, in order to get to grips with their lives as well, and to learn more about each other in an intrinsic way. I think I don't know if everyone's ever done vision boards with their partners, have you?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's such fun.
It is, because you learn so much more about the other person, you know, all the, you know, hopes and dreams that they have that you haven't necessarily even had a conversation about, because, you know, you're always talking about the daily things, because, you know, you're rushing here or doing this, and everything's on the moment. But doing a vision board with someone is actually quite interesting. And
a vision board. I misheard you. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
A vision board. Have you done a vision board with your partner?
Not properly. Recently, we were part of a class where we had to do like a life map, which was really interesting. It's kind of similar but different. Yeah.
But but it's a small intrinsic things, isn't it? So if you have something where you kind of understand yourself a lot better, but then, you know, you and your partner then can understand each other a lot better, and, you know, I suppose give or forgive those elements, you know, and excuse me. I think for me, my partner needs to be very forgiving on the, I've got something new that I really want to do now, you know, and I've kind of lost interest in something else, and I'm going to pick something new up. And yeah, so he has to have a lot of patience with me.
I think it's really, what was really supportive is building my own confidence and trusting my inner authority and trusting in my relationship. It was really helpful because we're very, very different energetically. And it was letting go of that, feeling the need that if somebody's doing something different than me, that it's threatening to me. You know, it's like there's this weird control we kind of adopt, that it's like, no, this is the way things should be done, and I only feel comfortable if they're done this way. And letting go of that, and just being able to kind of observe, like, oh, I would never do it that way, or I would never think of it that way, or, you know. And so it's no longer a threat to who I am, as much as it's like now a curiosity of like, oh wow, I would have never thought of that, and or that's so interesting that works for you. It totally doesn't work for me.
Yeah. But it's them supporting each other and knowing, isn't it? Sorry, Catherine, was I?
No, I was just going to say, you know, there's lots of difficult things that have come out for people over the last year, but I think one of the things that really excites me, which fits into this whole conversation, is this opportunity for people to sort of reset. That's a past now. Where am I going now? And I think that's just really lovely when you see people having the confidence to, some are being forced to try new things and some are choosing to try new things. But, you know, I think the old world as we had it is gone, in my opinion. And the new world is very, very different. And, you know, I'm old enough that when I left school, you know, you were expected to have a career for life, and it just never resonated with me. You know, you were expected to go on a graduate program, a training program that then set you up with a company that you'd be with for life, and you'd work your way up to the top and you'd get a really good pension. And for me,
bought into that.
My worst nightmare, and then no one could understand why I didn't want to do this. And I've changed careers so many times, it's ridiculous, but it's lovely for me. But now it's like if you have the same clothes in your wardrobe for long enough, eventually they come back into fashion. And that's been quite funny for me, because now suddenly it's like, oh, it's not weird anymore to be doing that. But I'm really excited for my children. I'm really excited that they don't have to come out of school or college or whatever their path is and think that's what I want to do with life, because who knows? You don't know, well, one, you don't know how you're going to change, and secondly, the environment's changing all the time. It's certainly not boring. So, oh, it's really lovely. Thank you so much, ladies. Annessa, now your website is Decode Your Design.
Correct.
.com. So I'm going to put your contact details, your website details down below. Percy, Rachel and I, we've had several chats sort of offline, and we wouldn't be doing this talk if we both didn't find it absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I can really, really recommend you to everyone. I am actually really seriously looking forward to working with you on a bit more of an ongoing thing to keep me on track a bit. But yeah, we'll put all your details down below, and I would say people explore it, because I think you might find it really, really useful. What about you, Rachel?
No, absolutely. I think just understanding the foundation of, where or who we are, and then how we can build on that and actually learn from it. And it's that listening, isn't it? And knowing intrinsically, and knowing that we're not completely and utterly mad. I think that's the best thing about it. Yeah, I promise you I'm not mad. This is exactly who I am, and I completely 100% agree. And that is, and it's exciting. I get so excited about these things, because it's like, oh, the truth at last. So thank you so much, Annessa. It was an absolute pleasure, and just learning little bits. I mean, I need to, I think, go back over the recording that we did, because I've forgotten a ton of it already. But it would be so lovely to kind of learn a little bit more about it, and and how you can help people, because and I do keep saying this, I feel like a broken record, but there are so many people who have lost their love, their joy. They've forgotten what they love in their life, and and then they lack energy, and they lack the real love and the want to have all those amazing things in life again. And it's there, it's been buried. Guys used to love, when they were children, playing football, just running around a garden with a ball. It's just little simple things like that. For me, it's spinny exercises, anything that makes me giggle generally. But yeah, I'm not completely and utterly mad, and this proves it. Which I love. But yeah, I do find these kind of things very exciting. But thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well said. Yeah, let's bring more passion back in. Let's
Passion. Well, thank you, ladies. Hopefully we'll connect again. And thanks so much for your time tonight, Annessa.
No problem. Thank you.
Big hugs, virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs, yes.